Hello, everyone. Hi. So, my name is Corbin Snardon, and I'm so happy to be able to make this presentation with you today. I want to give a big shout out to the McCracken County Library for the invitation of being able to do this. And of course, this segment is, if you can all see my screen, is how to make a difference in getting involved in your local community. So before I get into the meat and potatoes of my presentation, I would just like to give you a quick little rundown on who I am. All right, so just a little bit about me. I am currently the new assistant principal at the Paducah Innovation Hub, which is formerly the Paducah Area Technology Center. I just started that a few weeks ago. I am the second vice president of the local McCracken County NAACP. I was a finalist for the 2015 Teacher of the Year, Kentucky Teacher of the Year, and just a general all-around community advocate. And I like bow ties, in case you didn't see that in there. And in this picture, it's actually Jewel Jones, who is the youngest state representative from Michigan. So very excited when I actually had to take this picture. You wouldn't know it, but he's actually the younger of us. He's like 24. I am not 24, but I am also not old either. So as the kids want to call me old, but I'm not old yet, just to give a little humor. But to get into what we're talking about today, feel free at any point in time as I'm going through my presentation, please share questions or comments in the chat. I will be checking it periodically to see what your questions may or may not be. But moving forward, we know that just recently we lost a very huge icon. Excuse me, we lost Representative John Lewis, who was a huge figure not only in Congress but also as a civil rights activist. And I'm really framing this presentation around one of the things that he said, which is, you see the quote on your screen, you see something that's not right and not fair, not just, then you have a moral obligation to do something about it. So when it comes to getting involved, especially here in Paducah, I really want you to ask the question of, what is it that you're seeing that you think is not right, not fair, not just? And if it doesn't move you to do something about it, then you need to question whether or not is that thing really worth it. So I always tell people, if you really, really, really want to know what's going on, if you really, really are passionate about something and really, really want to see something done, please, make sure that you go for it. Make sure that you are actively engaged in that. And that's where all differences, or making a difference, not differences, excuse me, that's where making a difference really starts, is really within yourself seeing something that you know that needs to change. So I want to just talk about civic engagement just for a second, which is something that I'm immensely passionate about. So, but of course, I'm passionate about civic engagement, but what are you passionate about? What issues are you passionate about? I know that many people have their viewpoints on different things that go on in the city, no matter what side of the fence you are politically, and not to politicize an issue, but we know that, in the news recently, people have weighed in their comments on the downtown parking lot, or the aquatic center, or stormwater, in the list of things that different people who have all valid opinions on what they think should be done for the city and how to be engaged in that. And so I tell people, what are you passionate about? Is that something that you want to go to? I don't know if anybody has recently watched the news or followed some things in the Paducah Sun, but there was a woman in Paducah that saw a need in Oaklawn Cemetery on Park Avenue, where she visited her deceased relatives and was trying to pay her respects, but realized that the cemetery had not been properly maintained and upkept, and took it upon herself to actually organize and get some people out and help clean up the cemetery, clean up the headstones, do a little mowing, do a little maintenance, because Parks and Rec has fallen behind because of COVID-19. So, that's something that started off as something small. It doesn't have to be the biggest issue in the world. It doesn't have to be, a downtown hotel or parking lot. It doesn't have to be an aquatic center. It can be something as simple as fixing up a cemetery. But with that, I have to also ask people, whenever they have an issue or whenever they feel like they want to get involved and make a difference in something, do you know about the issue? Especially in my job, I tell people that, bad information is worse than no information at all. I really encourage people, be informed about the issue, know what's going on. And don't just know what you feel about it, know the facts on the situation. It's one thing to feel a certain way about something, but understanding the issue behind it actually helps you to be able to solve things. I'll use the example of the woman that I just mentioned at the cemetery who organized a group of people noticing that the cemetery had not been properly upkept. In digging deeper with this, that same individual also found out that Parks and Rec has actually had a hiring freeze. And normally where they would hire workers for the summer to be able to do cemetery upkeep, they haven't been able to do that because of COVID-19. So somebody else could have seen that as like, oh, the city's not doing their job and they're not keeping the cemetery, when it was not that. I also say, where do you get correct information? Make sure that when you are researching something about an issue or something that you are passionate about something that you are passionately wanting to be engaged about, make sure that you are getting your information from a credible source. Facebook is not a credible source. Instagram, Twitter are not credible sources. And sadly to say, Wikipedia is not a credible source. I like to think of getting information straight from the horse's mouth if you can. If you have an issue that is with the city or the county, go to the city or the county's website and look through what the city and the county have said on said issue. If you have an issue with, of course, we know that in the news we have been seeing a lot of things around police brutality, the Black Lives Matters movement, particularly for our own state in Louisville with Breonna Taylor in Louisville. Get your sources of information as direct from the sources you possibly can. Not, Susie Q on Facebook who felt some type of way about it and just shared her opinion. And also, do you vote regularly? Civic engagement is really, at the crux of it, is getting involved. Do you vote regularly? Do you encourage other people to vote? Are you engaged civically? Have you worked at a poll? Have you helped other individuals get themselves registered to vote? Do you know what precinct to vote at? These are all very, very important things. Now, this doesn't mean that you have to be political warrior number one. It doesn't mean that you have to go out and wear your GOP or your Democratic shirt or whatever political party you represent. It doesn't mean that at all, but it does mean that you are civically and actively engaged. Voting is one way to do that, but also simple things like going to city commission meetings or McCracken County Fiscal Court meetings. It means going to school board meetings or any of the numerous boards that exist within the city and the county that operate on certain things. Again, you should do this within the realm of your expertise, whatever your circle is. If you're a contractor, I suggest that you keep up with what the Board of Adjustments is doing and seeing what they're doing with the zoning laws. If you're into, I don't know who this is for, but if you're into, stormwater and sewage and things like that, you probably need to check and see the minutes from the JSA, the Joint Sewer Agency, which is also a board that exists within the city, just to see like what are they doing about an issue that some people are very, very passionate about and are very, very incited about. So civic engagement does mean being engaged civically. You can do that from home. I know that COVID-19 has had us doing things a little differently. You can be civically engaged without having to be out amongst a crowd. But again, all those things of knowing the issue and getting the correct information, that's important too. Social media is a great tool when it is used correctly. And when you share information, just make sure it is done correctly. But I also want to talk about community involvement. Civic engagement and community involvement are two different things, but they go hand in hand. And so when we're talking about community involvement, I like to look at these 5 items kind of in this order to help you engage yourself for whatever issue is passionate for you. So advocate, meaning to make sure that you know the issue and that you're able to speak on it and educate other people on it. And sometimes that makes you the speaker box. If you're uncomfortable being the speaker box and being the voice for whatever issue that you have, make sure you find somebody that is good in that area. Too often I see a lot of beautiful ideas get stomped out because it's either placed on one person or that person is not able to communicate it as well as someone else could. So, know your limitations and know your strengths as well, but advocating for your issue, whatever that may be, speaking up on it and knowing it correctly and being able to communicate that to other people so that they can do some work with you and help you. Organizing, which is the next part of that, making sure that you organize. If you don't plan, you fail. If you fail to plan, you plan to fail. So I always want to encourage people, get your ideas on paper, get your ideas together with your group, your cadre, whoever it is, and organize and really sit down and create a specific plan for what you want. When I look at the examples that we have been seeing in the recent months with the different protests in different cities of George Floyd, of Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery, the list goes on. I also encourage people, yes, protesting is your constitutional right, and it is a good thing when done correctly. But I also tell people that what is your ask? What is your specific thing after that? Because you need to have a plan going forward. In the case of someone like Breonna Taylor, who we know was killed in Louisville, but we know that the ask for Breonna Taylor is to get justice for her family and to see that the people that killed her see their day in court. That's the ask. That's what people want. But too often we see issues and things that come in to our community and to our own circles, and we want to see something fixed. We just don't know what we want. So when we organize, though, when we plan that out, it helps out a ton. When I'm able, or you're able, or whoever is able to go before the city, the county, or whatever entity, and to be able to communicate it effectively and to be organized. And then after you organize, you got to activate. You've got to get people actually doing something. If I go and I say I want to build, I don't know, I'm going to make this up off the top of my head, but let's say I wanted to build a casino boat right off of the river. Not that that's what I want to do, but let's just go there for fun. I want to build a casino boat right off the Paducah riverfront, and I need to have a 30-day, a 60-day, 90-day, 2-year plan together to be able to go to the city and say, I need X amount of money. And now I'm going to go to my friends, and I'm going to go and get their friends, and we're going to activate, and we're going to go to the city commission meeting, and we're going to have everything all laid out. So that's what I mean by activating. You are getting people active. It can't just be people sitting down. It can't just be people at home being Facebook warriors and saying, "Oh, go support this." No, sometimes you need some boots on the ground, feet in the streets. You need people actually able to get out there and speak to people. You need people actually out there to be able to communicate, and you need a variety of people. I cannot stress that enough. You really need a variety of people who can represent you in the boardroom, people that can represent you out in the community, people that can represent your issue, on clerical and paperwork, because that's all very important. It all works together. And so leading to the next point of mobilization, once you've gotten people active, you want to be able to sustain that. And that's what the mobilization comes from. You are enacting your plan and you're progress monitoring that. You're seeing, are you being successful? Is this work being done the way that you think that it should be done? Have you stuck with your plan? Does something need to change in the plan to be able to get what you want? And then, of course, you want to make sure that you follow up. As always, making sure that you follow up, because that is huge. I think sometimes we get an idea in our head that, oh, we made it and that's it, and then we never follow up on it, and whatever it was that we wanted kind of falls away. But I strongly encourage people, follow up on what you're doing, check to see if everything is the way that you want it. But above all, please be informed. Again, bad information is worse than no information at all. Misinformation is worse than no information at all. For any of you who are musical theater people or grew up watching movies like I did, if you've ever seen The Wiz, there's which is a parody, not a parody, but a retelling of The Wizard of Oz. There's a song that's in there that's called "Don't Nobody Bring Me No Bad News," and I am kind of the same way. If you're gonna bring me something I can use, but don't nobody bring me no bad news. So when I talk about people or talk about issues, I'm not actually talking about people, but when I talk to people about issues or when I'm actually advocating for things in the community, my first thing is to try to get as much information, as much correct information as I can. Please be informed. When you have correct information, you're able to make smarter decisions. You're able to make more wiser decisions. I find that a lot of times I find that a lot of times people will be very passionate about an issue, and that is perfectly fine. It is great to be passionate about an issue. It's great to feel some type of way about whatever is important to you. But I also have to move beyond acting and reacting to my emotions, and I have to act from a place of factual information to be able to make an informed decision. If I know that it's going to rain tomorrow, I tend to wear rain boots. I tend to take an umbrella, a rain jacket, something like that. But if I'm just kind of going with the flow and I get caught in the rain, I can't be mad if I'm wet. So that is the way that I look at things with community organizations, with community involvement, with civic engagement. I need to be informed on it. I need to know different aspects on it. Are you ever going to know everything about a particular issue? Of course not. But you should know enough to be able to make an informed decision. So, using the example of things that are going on in the city, we know that last week we had quite a deluge of rain that came through and a lot of flooding. I was not spared from that myself either. But we also know that there are many people who feel very passionate one way or the other about the flooding issues that are in our city. And I remember having a conversation with someone just last week after the flooding was going on, and they're complaining and griping, and the city should do this and 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 this. And I had a conversation with them, and I said, well, the city is actually trying to do something about this. I'm like, but do you know how much it costs to fix everything for the stormwater? They actually had a surveyor come out and do that, and it's to the tune of about $43 million as an estimate. And they're like, well, I didn't know it cost that much. I'm like, this is what correct information does. It sometimes helps quell people. So again, be informed, tell other people to be informed so that they can make smart and wise decisions. Which also goes to, know the facts. That doubles up with being informed. Please know your facts, not alternative facts, but please know your facts. Double check, triple check. I like stuff to be on paper. I like to get stuff that is handwritten in my hand that I can double check with multiple sources. I'm just kind of anal retentive on that. A lot of times the issues and the things that I'm advocating for or against sometimes end up dealing with local organizations. And I have to go back and say, well, can you show me your minutes from your last meeting? Can you put that in writing? That is a good way to make sure that you are maintaining and monitoring your progress as well as whatever issue you're trying to get. Even within meetings and things like that, I'm very anal about having a meeting and then following it up with an email just to kind of reiterate, oh, this is what we talked about, especially when you're fighting for something as sensitive as, could be a court case or some kind of discrimination clause or something like that, because I am in the NAACP and we have had to deal with situations of discrimination within different companies or organizations within the local area. And so, we always have to make sure that we know our facts, and we also make sure that we are holding whomever is sitting across the table from us, we're holding them to the facts as well too, which is why I always like to get stuff on paper and make sure that I'm informed when I go in there. For those of you looking to be involved in something, I want to definitely put a big shout out to our nonprofits. Everything isn't always about starting something yourself. I think that nonprofits are a great way for people to volunteer and get involved in something that where you don't have to reinvent the wheel. I realize that a lot of people are very passionate about their things, very passionate about particular issues. And if there is a need that is not being met, then I so encourage you to meet that need by starting whatever you need to do that. But I also want to say that why reinvent the wheel if you don't have to? If your passion is helping people meet their needs, let's say helping feed the homeless population or feeding those families that are struggling with food insecurity, Paducah Cooperative Ministries is a fantastic place for you to be able to donate food, for you to be able to volunteer your time. Starfish Orphan Ministry, as the name implies, helps children. They do help adults as well, but they are more so focused towards children. And any of the other list of nonprofits that are here on here, and so many more. This could be your local churches. This could be through the library. This could be through community-based organizations, and the list goes on and on and on. If you know of an organization that is already doing something that you think you're passionate about, then join them. Don't reinvent the wheel if you don't have to. Plus, what these organizations, some of the nonprofits that I've listed, the structures and things that they have in place make it so much easier for you to get the resources that you need. It is impossible for one man or one woman to save the world all by themselves. If I tried to feed every hungry person here in Paducah, I would be hungry. So, I have to make sure that I'm taking some time to use those organizations and resources that are already here and already available. Not publicizing anyone over the other, I will say that United Way of Paducah-McCracken County is fantastically attached to multiple nonprofits within the city. And they are very, very, very well resourced and well connected to be able to point you in the direction of something that you may want to do. So again, talking about your passion and what you want to do and how you want to do the things that you do, if you don't have to reinvent the wheel, don't. Help out those nonprofits that are here. I want to make a big plug for any nonprofit in the city right now. In the wake of COVID-19, we know that there are some significant fallouts. There are many families that are struggling. And so I would encourage you, if it is within your power, to assist some of these nonprofits if you can. I am an educator, and so kids are my first. Kids are kind of my first ministry and my first heart right there. And so just speaking on behalf of educators and the school districts, we have a lot of kids that are maybe not in a good home. They are in food insecure households. They could be in abusive households. We have parents that are unable to work right now, either because they were furloughed or their business closed down, you name it. COVID-19 has affected so many people. So if it is within your grasp to be able to help people through some of the nonprofits that are listed, please do. I would also, even though they're not listed here right now, I would also encourage you, if there's other nonprofits like Lotus and the Marion House, which focus on sexual abuse and domestic violence abuse. If those are areas that you're passionate about, I suggest reaching out to those, because they can also help link people with the mental health resources and healing resources that they need to move forward. So, I just want to bring that out and point that out to people. Excuse me. I want to take a quick second and see if there's anything here in the chat. I can't see the chat screen from. Not yet. Okay. So we're going to keep going. And just remember, if you have any questions, please make sure to drop it into the chat, and I'll be happy to answer that. I mentioned helping out nonprofits, but you also may want to consider joining an organization for yourself. Join any reputable, keyword reputable organization, and they will be able to have the access to resources, all of that information that I was talking about, and you'll be in the company of people just like you. Orgs like NAACP, your booster clubs at your local schools, site-based decision-making councils, gardening clubs, you name it. There's a list of things that could exist. And if there is not something that exists in the city or the local area that you feel is a fit for you, create your own thing. But I do strongly encourage people to be a part of some type of professional organization, whether that's a civic organization or even a political organization. I do know that McCracken County has there's the Republicans of McCracken County, Democrats of McCracken County, other political groups and organizations. If politics is your thing, if your thing is NAACP, join the NAACP. If your thing is gardening, join the gardening club, whatever it is that suits your taste. But I do strongly encourage people to join an organization. Again, some of these organizations, again, I am a member of the NAACP. Organizations like the NAACP are 110 years old. And so I don't have to reinvent the wheel. The NAACP has already done a fantastic job with their websites and resources and all of the things that they've done over the years for me to be able to link into that and to plug into that now. I cannot stress that enough. I think some people jump in, and I'm guilty of it. We get a great idea and we just jump headfirst into it without really building the framework on there. not understanding that somebody else has probably already done what you've done, and using their idea, not stealing it, but all great ideas are stolen, in case you didn't know. But using those frameworks that other people have already used and had in place makes it so much easier for you to accomplish whatever it is that you wish to accomplish. So I strongly, strongly encourage joining um, a professional organization. A lot of times, yes, that does include, having a membership fee or something of that nature. But I feel like the membership fee is a small price to pay for being linked in and plugged into the things that you are passionate about and the things that help make a difference in your community. Um, put your money where your mouth is. If you can't put your time or your money into it, don't. And I'm sorry, there's a typo in my slide here, but it should just simply say, if you can't put your time or money into it, then don't. Um, if you're not willing to put some effort into what you want, please don't. You would be better served off not doing anything at all than to do something half-cocked or halfway. I grew up in a small town called Trenton, Kentucky, which is about 10-15 minutes outside of Clarksville, Tennessee. Town only had like 700 or 800 people. I grew up on a farm, and my dad just was one of those types of people that was like, if you're not going to do it right, I'd rather you not do it at all. And I take that same approach with getting involved in the community. If you're not going to do it right, if you're not going to put the effort or energy into it that's required, then don't. Now, respectively speaking, you do have to know your limitations, because nobody can be everything. I find that for myself personally, sometimes I go head first into something and I'm putting 110% into it, not realizing that that does put a drain on you. So you can't be everything all at once, but you can put some energy and effort into what you're doing. So again, put your money where your mouth is. If you're not willing to put some money behind it, if you're not willing to put some time behind it, because not everything is about how much money you can put into it, but if you're not willing to put yourself into it, then you'd be better served off by not doing it. I know a lot of people get moved by seeing things on Facebook or TV or whatever it is that newspaper, whatever. But if you're not moved enough to actually do something about it, then you're not moved. You just had an emotional response. I need you to be passionate about whatever that is. If planting tulips in March is your passion, then you need to be moved enough to plant those tulips in rain, sleet, snow, or shine. But if you're just whimsical about it and it's like, oh, I wish I could help with that, but never really do anything about it, then that's not benefiting anyone. I'm a Michael Jackson fan. I don't know if anybody have listened to Man in the Mirror, but if you want to make the world a better place, take a look at yourself and then make a change. So I do encourage people strongly, especially in the season and the times that we're in right now, where we're dealing with a uniqueness of societal climate, where things are very testy right now, where things are very tense and terse right now. I strongly encourage, if you're going to do anything at all, make sure that you're putting some energy and some effort into it. Put your money where your mouth is, put your time into it, put some energy to it. I understand that not everybody is a feet in the streets, boots on the ground type of person, and that's fine. Not everybody has to be out front. You can contribute, again, as I said earlier, you can contribute to whatever it is that you're passionate about in a variety of different ways. And sometimes the small things that we don't appreciate that people do for their different organizations, for the nonprofits, or just for impassionate things in general, we overlook the small things, not realizing they build up to bigger things. I don't know how many of you feel special if somebody writes you a thank you card, but I feel absolutely on top of the world when somebody writes a thank you card. If something goes on and somebody took the time out of their day to send me a thank you card, but how many people actually feel like that's an important job? Somebody has to write that thank you card. If you're mailing letters to people to share about an issue, somebody's got to put those stamps and seal those letters. That's a thankless job. Nobody thinks anything about the stamp licker or the letter licker. Nobody thinks about that, but that's an important job. And so thinking about the fact that when I say put your money where your mouth is, it doesn't necessarily just mean putting physical money in there, but it does mean putting your time in there and understanding that there are different facets of the job. There are different things that have to be done, and everybody plays a role. So no role is too unimportant. Like I said, if you are the stamp licker that puts stamps on the letters, where, you know, by golly, that's an important job. And I don't know if you guys noticed, but stamps are god awful high. So whoever is putting stamps on letters these days, they need a raise. So, you know, appreciate those people who are doing things like that. Moving forward, I want to tell people also embrace the challenge. Anything that you're passionate about is going to be challenging. I've never seen anybody try to tackle an issue that wasn't a problem. Uh, and understand that nothing happens overnight, that you are playing chess, not checkers. It is a long game. It is not something that gets fixed overnight, whatever the issue or the problem that you are thinking of. Mistakes happen, but so does success. You know, don't beat yourself up if you don't win that battle the first time. Don't beat yourself up if you're still fighting 2-3 years later for whatever it is that you're passionate about. You know, embrace that challenge that goes on there. I also encourage people, get to know who your city and county leaders are. I tell my students all the time, your network increases your net worth. So make sure that you are hooked up and linked up to those people that can advance what you're needing to know. So in addition to city and county leaders, whatever your circle is, if your issue is within the faith-based community, get linked up with those clergy leaders who are in the community. If your issue is in the business community, get linked up to the bigwigs and the movers and shakers in the business community. You have to embrace that. You have to embrace criticism. You have to be willing to embrace constructive criticism. You have to be willing to embrace some hard times. You have to embrace being told no, even though you know it may be the right thing to do. You have to be able to embrace failure. These are all a part of embracing the challenge. And I want to strongly encourage people, you know, of course, go make your plan, go do what you have to do. And that leads to, you know, being strategic and have that game plan ready. But be able to be flexible enough that if your plan doesn't go as you designed it, that you're okay with that, that you're able to adapt and that you're able to move forward. A lot of the things that I do in the community, I use the template of the civil rights movement for a lot of discrimination fighting and things that the NAACP does. So when I look into the context and the lens of that, the civil rights movement happened long over a course of a decade, much longer than that even. But we look at the events like the 1963 March on Washington or the 1954 Brown versus Board of Education. We look at those landmark events, forgetting that it was years before those things took place. Using Brown versus Board of Education as an example, that was a court case that happened over the course of years and years before that happened. The 1963 March on Washington took over a year of planning to do. So, you know, these are things that do not happen overnight, and you have to embrace that. You have to be able to embrace frustration as well. But finishing up and kind of closing out, this is my good sunny day picture when my hair was really, really on point. But if you would love to get in contact with me, I would love to talk to anybody to be able to share any kind of resources. Resources, not resources. I would love to be able to share any resources or just to pick your brain or to have a conversation. I'm always available for that. You can see my contact information to be able to reach me at any of the items that are listed right there. I also want to encourage people to get involved in some additional resources that I've also listed here on the slide in front of you. These are websites that are for mainly civic and civic engagement. So I've got the city's website on there, which has access to all of the different boards and commissions that are on in the city. You have access to city commission meetings. The McCracken County main website for the fiscal court, so that you're able to go through and look at the fiscal court meetings and their minutes, able to, you know, touch base with the county clerk, and if you need something for like voter registration or anything like that. I've also listed the schools and of course the McCracken County Libraries website. Libraries are valuable resources, and this pandemic has proved it even more so now that libraries are much needed in our communities. And so I strongly encourage people, you know, to continue to support the McCracken County Public Library. This is pretty much the majority of my presentation, and I wanted to make sure I left enough time. We're about 3:40 by my watch, and I wanted to make sure I left enough time for questions And I see we've got a question here. Do I have any suggestions for high school age students to get involved with? Yes. So I would say for high school students, you know, first off, if you do have a high school student, I believe this is from Ellen Udberg, addressing Ellen, I would say that at your high school, wherever that is, start with a club that your child is interested in. I know a lot of schools, every school that pretty much that I've ever worked in has had some type of high school club that they could get involved in. And that could, if they're into Spanish, put them in the Spanish club. I know I work in Paducah City Schools. I know that there's a club that's called Interact, and they do things like service, community service things, and they usually culminate every year with a mission trip. Chess team, there are, see, the Paducah Tillman this year actually had a African American leadership club where it focused on African American students and getting them into leadership roles and getting them comfortable with their history, and a very, very pleasant club that I actually happen to be a part of myself. And I know that McCracken County also has quite a few things as well. So yes, I would say that high school students have plenty of options within their school themselves, but they can also volunteer outside of school too. Things like community kitchen and serving there. They're also able to volunteer at local nonprofits like Family Service Society or Starfish and things like that. So yes, high school students can do pretty much anything that the adults can, so long as they have supervision. But great question, Ellen. Are there any other questions? If there are no more questions, I'm going to turn it back over to Bobby Winkle or whomever else at McCracken County Library. Before I jump off, I just want to say thank you so much for the opportunity for me to be able to share these resources. Again, this is stated earlier, it is recorded, so like and share it and be able to watch it whenever you wish to. Thank you, whoever C-Bates2 is, but going to civic meetings that are regular is a good way to get engaged too. You're absolutely right. It's a great way to see what's happening that's regular and public. You are absolutely right. I tend to watch the city commission meetings pretty regularly because they are streamed and they're on YouTube. You know, I may not make it when they actually have them. I believe they're on the 2nd and 4th Tuesday of each month, but I can always go back and watch it. But yeah, you're right. Civic meetings are a good regular way to do that. Sometimes just being in the room and hearing the information is a part of being involved too. Thank you.
If there's not any more questions, we appreciate so much everyone joining us today for the library's virtual programming. And we thank you so much to Corbin for this valuable, important discussion. If you have further comments, please reach out to Corbin. You have his contacts. And we thank you again for joining us today.
Again, thank you all, and I hope you all have a lovely day.